tell me when you're ready.
Yeah, we're good.
Good. Okay, I'd like to call to order the Town of Delafield Board of Supervisors meeting for Tuesday, February 9th, 2021. If you'd all rise and join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, citizens' comments. I don't believe there are any citizen comments. Approval of the minutes of the January 26, 2020 Town Board meeting. Any corrections, any comments?
It should say the meeting started at 6:30 PM, not AM.
Yeah, there were a couple comments that Christy brought to my attention. I made those changes already. Two other small grammatical errors, and those are already made on the original document. So.
Okay,
Motion to approve the minutes,
subject to changes.
subject to changes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the January 26, 2020 meeting, 2021 meeting, subject to changes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Okay, action on vouchers submitted for payments. Are there any budget sub-account actions or amendments to the 2020 budget? No. What about the 2021 budget? Again, no. And then we'll do accounts payable and payroll.
Motion to approve payments of, for accounts payable, payments of checks numbers 64384 through 64386 and 64389 through 64436 in the amount of $775,942.06. And for payroll, a recommendation, a motion to approve the payroll is dated February 5th, 2021 in the amount of $15,264.17.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the accounts payable and payroll checks as submitted. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Communications. Item 6A, mixed-use ordinance general update discussion purposes only. Mr. Green.
So Jason sent out the final draft to the community work group. They have until February 16th to send back their comments or suggestions, if any. So we will know a better timeline once he receives those comments back. So until now, we're just kind of waiting for the community group to review and get back to Jason. So that's all I have.
Okay. Any questions for Dan regarding that? Okay.
Any update from Jason regarding the Teams meeting or logistics of that?
He's still working on it. He
Okay.
got back to me and Jason, but I think his team is gonna put something together so we can have it both ways, both on YouTube and have a Teams meeting set up.
Okay, then the administrator's report. Again, Mr. Green.
Just a real quick update. Staff is working on updating the fee schedule for 2021. We like to get those approved every year. Specifically, we're looking at plan commission fees. They're significantly lower than other communities. And talking to Tim, those haven't been updated in quite a long time. So right now, I'm just going through salaries and what the costs are associated with those plan commission fees. And then hopefully we'll have something to you by next week. And just a general update, our impact fees were increased adjusted for CPI. Those don't have to be approved by the board, but they're just adjusted and take effect January 1st of the new year. The February 16th primary is coming up on Tuesday of next week. Polls are open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Your typical polling locations will be your site. And we have in-person absentee voting going on till Friday of this week. So, and then taxes, if you haven't paid to this point, then you're late. And you'd have to make any payments to Waukesha County at this point. I think it went really well again this year. We as staff appreciate you guys letting us use Waukesha State Bank. Significantly less complaints than we had last year for people having to go there. I've only heard maybe a few people kind of gripe about the trip, but again, being at Century, it's a half mile away, so there's not a whole, not a better scenario really than that. So, so overall, it was a pretty smooth beginning of the year, and hopefully the completion of the audit goes well too, so that we can transition into the spring and summer. So that's all I've got.
That's great.
Can we ask questions?
Yeah, sure.
Regarding the February 16th primary, the Little Red Schoolhouse is a polling location. Do you have to reach out to the school district, whoever, to make sure that that lot is plowed so that there's adequate parking for the turnout that's expected?
I did reach out to him just to let them know that we're using it and that we're coming, so I'll follow up with him again in the morning just to make sure. I haven't been driven that way in a while, so,
Half the parking lot's plowed, the other half isn't plowed. So.
okay, I'll touch base with him then tomorrow.
Good point.
Thanks for letting me know.
Any other comments, questions for?
For the fee schedule update, when you bring those before us at the next meeting, could you have Tim just note how many years it's been?
Yes.
That would be
Yep.
great.
I know it's at least 10, but
It's been a long time.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to item 6C, Lake Country Fire Commission update. Mr. John, rather.
I don't have
Trey.
any updates aside from what I had submitted in my report to you and Dan last week.
Well, his email to Dan and I from last week here, everything's going well. They're bringing in new people. It sounds like the general atmosphere is positive and moving forward.
It is, yeah, we had a swearing in last week of 3 new full-time firefighters, and we're doing a hiring process interviews on the 4th of March for 2 more positions.
No, things are going well. You know, the response rate is pretty insane. You know, just, I know there was an incident yesterday, and watching all the trucks go down North Shore was pretty amazing yesterday, so.
they've been actively involved in the COVID vaccinations here at Town Hall as well. So, although from what I understand, it's been becoming a little bit burdensome for them. So I don't know if they're going to have FEMA take over or something like that. But from what they've done, it's been very productive, and it's been good to see Town Hall being used for good. So.
At the last fire board meeting, Chief reported 202 first responders had been vaccinated through the efforts of LCR. And they're hosting a large-scale event in the beginning of March for Pewaukee School District and Kettle Moraine School District for teachers and administrative staff to be vaccinated as well. So it's a big undertaking. But they were encouraged because they feel they'll get reimbursed for the time spent from the federal government. So, all was well according to the chief at the last meeting.
Yeah, it sounds like it's really going well, smooth.
And
It was
Chief
a
is
smooth transition.
working with Chief Hoppy to develop a monthly report that we can bring to the board as a part of this. It'll just show some high-level statistics, calls, call location, and things like that. So I think it'll be a nice tool that we can look at monthly.
Yeah, that'd be great, 'cause I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
If we're gonna continue the reporting, so we see a report from the fire department.
If there's anything you all are accustomed to seeing or liked seeing previously, let me know, and I can pass it on to Chief, because he was looking for feedback as to what should be in the report as he develops it. So.
All right, thanks, John. Chief Hoppy, do you have any additional comments or?
Just the one thing that's a recent update on the COVID vaccinations. The county fire service had 4 sites running for a month. We're officially standing down at the end of February, and Waukesha County is ramping up. Waukesha County Health Department is going to take the place on the school system vaccinations, so the fire
Good.
department won't be involved in that anymore. We were initially ramping up for it. The county health stepped in, so we don't have to, because it was becoming a burden to keep those clinics going with as much staff as it required.
Good.
Okay.
Otherwise, they were successful clinics, and just, it's nice to see a sunset to that at the end of the month.
Great. Any questions for Chief Hoppy? Okay, great, thanks, guys. We'll move on to item 7A, unfinished business. Discussion and possible action on the approval of ordinance 2021-01, an ordinance to repeal and recreate portions of Chapter 2 of the Town of Delafield Municipal Code concerning the conduct of meetings and vacation of chair. This was discussed at the last meeting, or the meeting before that even, and the comments were submitted by each of the supervisors. We went through this in detail, Dan and I, and then we met with Tim and our attorney, Eric, and I think you can see what was incorporated. There's a red line version and a final version of what was incorporated.
Ron, do you want a motion to take off the table?
Oh, yeah.
Motion to take it off the table.
All right.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to take off the table, and everything I just said is still valid. So,
Aye.
Do we have to vote on the motion to take it off the table?
oh, we do. Gosh darn it. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's off the table. Now, any comments on the changes or additions?
I have just a question regarding the limit to the 30 minutes. I guess I'm just trying to think how that might play out or look. I know since in the last little over a year, we've had maybe 2 particular topics where that probably would have come to fruition. And I guess I'm just wondering, what are our thoughts on how that looks? Is it based on the number of people that are present? Are we going to determine that, at the beginning of the meeting? Are we going to wait and see how many people want to talk? Or, because that was one that I guess I.
Well, the
Not real sure.
proposed change says comments shall be limited to 30 minutes in total
Right.
unless otherwise deemed appropriate by the chairman or a consensus of the town board. So there's 2 avenues. If we have 100 people in here and in 30 minutes only 15 have been able to speak, then it would be my style as chairman to extend it, and it can be extended in 15-minute increments until we feel there's been adequate presentation of the people who wish to speak. I'm the one who crafted this because I want people to speak, in essence. Right now, there's no requirement that they're even allowed to speak, and this makes it a requirement that they shall speak. My only issue from the meetings that we've been in the past is that once it becomes redundant and the same topics get being brought up over and over, that would be the indication to me as the chair that we would end the public comment section. But I can be, the way I worded this, and Dan and I worded this, I can be overridden by a consensus of the board. So if the board votes, so I say meeting's over, or discussion's over, and the supervisors, Mr. Kranik or somebody makes a motion to extend it, it gets seconded, and it's voted upon, then it's extended. So Eric's not even in favor of having a public discussion at all. So this was kind of we thought was a fair way to do it.
No, I think, yeah, you can have a room full of people, but you don't really know until people start talking if people are going to talk. So I think, 30 minutes, if it's fruitful and people have things to say that aren't being repeated, then, I think the chairman would extend it to 15 minutes. And then if the chairman doesn't, I would hope that, the other supervisor would step in and say, hey, people have the opportunity to speak. Let's give them another 15 minutes to speak and say their piece.
Or even 15 after that, or 15.
Yeah.
It's the repeating that becomes burdensome on everybody in the meeting. And I think I have a pretty clear practice of allowing people to speak. So, or at least I think I do.
In my reading of it was that the procedures for public hearings are, this falls outside that we would have a separate procedure for a public hearing. So that could be determined based off of whatever we anticipate the volume would be, so there would be a different rule for that particular meeting.
I don't, is that true?
Yeah, public hearings are completely different. There's no overall time limit. We do, I think, limit people 3 minutes to speak, but we
Yeah.
don't have a
They're
time limit.
limited to 3 minutes, but not to 30 minutes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And to that point too, a lot of times that redundancy comes in after there has been a public hearing and then you have a public comment where maybe if it was a joint public hearing, the town board has heard comments, and if they continue to repeat, that's kind of where that 30 minutes comes in as well, so.
Because I was looking around at 2.11, which is where it says procedures at public hearings, which is where I took that. We would have a separate procedure prepared for a
Yeah.
public hearing.
We
There's a
have a
whole-
procedure
yeah.
for public hearings.
Mm-hmm.
Now, have we made these changes? Christie made a point the other day of making them general neutral. Did you-
Yeah, those, I haven't incorporated them, I've changed them, and I sent it to Christie, I didn't print them out just because I think it's pretty
Yeah, it's
obvious
not
what
necessary.
ones need to be
Yeah.
changed.
And we're gonna do that we're reviewing all our ordinances, and we will do that on all the ordinances as we review them.
Yeah.
Now, the only issue Eric has with this, and part of me agrees with him, is we don't define citizen. So it's citizens, we took out, originally it said residents of the town were allowed to make comments. Then changes were proposed that if you're a taxpayer of the town, you may not live in the town,
Right.
but you still have the right to make a comment. So we changed it to citizens. And Eric's concerned that citizens is too broad of a word. It's citizens of what? Citizens of Singapore, citizens of Waukesha County. We talked a lot of different ways of narrowing the definition of citizen, and I decided to let the board decide. One, do we want to define the word citizen? And if so, do we want to define it to property owners and/or residents of the town, property owners and/or residents of the county, things like that. And there are several members of the town that own property that aren't residents, and they live in Illinois. But if we do something, they should still have the right to speak.
Yeah, I mean, that was my concern originally with the proposal. I think, citizens are, people who own property in the town or who are citizens and residents of, the state of Wisconsin or in Waukesha County and, surrounding communities. I mean, I don't want to, completely.
I think Eric's got a point. We may want to define it.
We don't want citizens of Singapore,
No, I would
necessarily,
agree.
or Russia, for
Yeah.
that matter, but.
I think if we went, I think going as broad as possible, doing citizens are property owners and/or residents of the state of Wisconsin. And then you may say that's too broad, let's just do Waukesha County.
What about people that work here or own a business here? I mean, I don't think we would want to exclude those folks should something be happening that they wish to speak on.
Yeah, that's why I didn't want to narrow it to Waukesha County. I think, if we keep it, broad enough to define it as.
That's a good point, yeah. So do we want to say property owners and/or residents of the state of Wisconsin? Because that should cover anybody that works here or anybody.
What about just a person that has a matter of interest before the town?
Give me an example.
Well, I mean, it would cover all of the above. I think the idea is that we would want to exclude somebody from Singapore coming in to say something random, right? That wouldn't be something the board is interested in, but if it was something that...
Well, it's a comment by Eric that I thought it should have been brought to the table, and I obviously wasn't comfortable with just making up my own definition. Primarily, I had not thought of people that work here, so that's a valid point.
I would err on the side of broader. I mean, we have several limits within there already, albeit the time for comment or the total time that could be limited, but possibly just something, an interest before the town.
There are concerns going just in Wisconsin too. Let's say somebody from, like the American Ramp Company wants to come and give an update or speak or something. Their residents are outside, they're in Missouri, but they do have a direct contact with the town, like you had mentioned.
Then we can just leave it at citizen. We can always, one of my concerns, it's very difficult to prove. What are we gonna ask the person to show us that they're a resident in the state of Wisconsin or verify it? We could just leave the term citizen, and if it becomes a problem,
And we can revisit it.
we can always revisit it. This is,
I agree with that, Ron. I read citizen to be a broad spectrum of, I mean, I think you could define somebody that works here as a citizen of our town, in a very broad sense, and
Well, they're a
I'm
citizen
fine
of
with it being
something.
broad, and we can define it, narrow it later if it becomes an issue.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's what everybody's comfortable with.
I prefer citizen over resident, because I agree. I think it needed to be broader than.
Taxpayer.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Or-
Okay. Any other comments? That was the only question that Eric raised in our discussion, other than his general opinion on it. But it's a policy decision of the town, so it's not a legal opinion, it's a policy decision. And if there's,
So just to clarify, do we want to have the citizen defined as someone with a matter of interest wishing to address the town board?
do
We don't have definitions of anything in here
Right.
unless we go back to chapter 1 where there are definitions for the code, correct?
Yeah, chapter 2 doesn't have definition section.
Because under 2.04D2, presentation shall be directed to topic,
Exactly.
subject, and related to the town of Delafield.
Wow.
I mean,
Which-
that kind of limits it, so they won't be speaking about
I agree, Chrissy.
the economy of Singapore.
But, and that's what it's for, to limit it, but we're gonna get comments on speed limits on frontage roads, which we have no power over at all.
Well, but kind of indirectly, though. I mean, we don't have power over it.
But we can-
But
we
they're,
can-
it's located within the town,
Yeah.
it's, you know.
I
property.
think that's legitimate, so,
Yeah, I think if we're going to have this section, we got to be open to hearing that.
I mean, we've heard about Highway C, it's the county highway, but
we still wanna hear
we
about
want
it.
to hear about it because it's happening in our town.
Yeah,
so.
and then we can contact the sheriff and do
Yeah.
some action on it.
Exactly.
No, I appreciate the work and the effort put forward because it really, I like the final product here that we've
Yeah.
brought back, so I, you know.
Agree.
Yeah, I think this draft looks really good, and thank you for all the work refining it.
Okay, is there a motion?
Just want to make a point of clarification.
Okay.
In the ordinance, it talks about a couple of things. One, it has roll call, and my thought is that if we adopt this ordinance, we should go back and follow the rules of the ordinance. So we may, at our next meeting, start adopting roll call. You guys don't have to do anything but say present after I say your name. And then we will want to read the rules, especially if we know that somebody is going to speak, that the rules of public comment be addressed to the persons in the audience before speaking. So just.
Yeah. And as we talked, we may even have on the table outside the rules of public comment typed up, and so when they can pick it up and read it.
Oh, we should just post it on the wall.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Just post it.
We can do that.
Yeah.
That's true, too.
And large enough font to read.
Yeah.
And, you know, in the interim, and there's, you know, this is something new, just take the time and
Go through it.
go through it before, you know, and say public comment, here are the rules, and
Yeah.
open the floodgates.
Okay, good discussion. Anything else?
Motion to approve the ordinance 2021-01, an ordinance to repeal and recreate portions of Chapter 2 of the Town of Delafield Municipal Code concerning the conduct of meetings and the vacation of the chair, contingent on changing everything to general, neutral pronouns.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second for approval with the stated condition. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Great. I think that'll memorialize what I think the board feels going forward. Okay, item 8, new business, or item 8B, discussion possible action, or 8A, discussion possible action on the approval of ordinance, discussion possible action on approval of ordinance 2021-02, an ordinance to repeal and recreate section 14.02 sub 1 of the municipal code to update the administrative code references.
This was brought up by our building inspector. This will essentially allow the town to do inspections on commercial buildings. It adopts the state's commercial building code. We had been doing commercial inspections, but we had not adopted this yet, and it was a state requirement. So we want to make sure that we're following the proper procedures to do so. So this was reviewed and drafted by Eric, and he approves it, and so is the building inspector. So just looking for just a cleanup ordinance, really, for our code.
And it follows state code.
Correct.
Yeah. Pretty straightforward.
Motion to approve ordinance 2021-02, an ordinance to repeal and recreate section 14.02 per N1 of the municipal code to update the administrative code references.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item 8A. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 8B, discussion possible action on the authorization to sell fire engine number 3162 through the Wisconsin surplus auction.
This is an FYI for the board. You guys do have to make a formal motion to approve selling a piece of equipment from the town, similar to what we did with the old red fire truck, the pickup that we sold, or we're going to sell last year. Mark Hoppy is here for the next item, but I don't know if you want to just give a brief update on the truck and the process.
This was a demo fire truck purchased in 1995. Actually, it was built in 1995. The town purchased it in 1996. It served as a backup engine and Station 2 ready reserve engine. Since we bought it, it was purchased for $153,000. It's actually in pretty good condition. We've maintained it well. The pump works. It's low miles, low hours. But it is an unnecessary piece of equipment now that we have a larger fleet and mutual aid partners that are formalized. And this is, I guess, just taking up space, and we don't want it to rot. It can go to a good home somewhere. We'd like to put it up on the Wisconsin surplus site to try and get some value for it. I will warn you that a used fire apparatus gets pennies on the dollar, even fractions of pennies, because it is inexpensive to get a loan to purchase a new truck nowadays and get exactly what you want in a fire truck. So we're not confident this will pull in a good amount of money, but we probably have to set a reserve price that you want to try and get for it and not let it go for a very small bid. So that is a real brief update. I can give you more on if you want, but we have the maintenance records, we have pictures, we have stuff ready to go to post it and sell it in a relatively short fashion for you. I think it sits on the state site for no more than 18 days, and they put a sunset closeout on the bidding process, so we will know more in a couple weeks.
But it's a live auction.
Yes, it's
For 18 days.
I'll call it live, but it's online. It sits there and people
Can
bid
see
on it.
See where it is. Okay.
Yep, and they watch it, and they know what day it's gonna close, and they watch it at the last day, an hour, and try and get it if they're looking for.
eBay.
So we don't get to approve the price, we just get to approve a minimum reserve that
Correct,
we don't want to go below X dollars.
correct.
What would that number be in your,
I was sort of afraid you were gonna ask.
I knew I was going to ask.
Yeah, I guess I did know that. I wish I could give you guidance and tell you, I don't know. I've watched some used apparatus magazines and websites recently, And I can see stuff in the 2006 era going for $30,000 and $40,000. Now, this is 10 years older than that and has less storage capacity. So I've not seen anything of this vintage or era move on those sites. So I'm reluctant to give you a number. I would be surprised if you get over 20 to 25,000 for it. That would probably be the high limit, and
We'll be lucky to get probably 15 to
Yeah.
20.
If whatever, say we put a reserve of 15 on it, and it doesn't sell, then how long do we have to wait before we can put it back on the surplus list?
I don't know their exact rules and parameters. I think you can list it again, and you just adjust your reserve, or your
Are we
minimum.
notified if it doesn't sell, what any bids were? So we would have some indication that,
Yeah, I believe you can see them. You can see them go as people put in for it. I'm not sure if you know, it's like a vendor number. I'm not sure if you'll know who that is that's bidding on it, but you can see the value that people are putting on it.
Is the reserve published
no.
as part of the bid?
No, I don't believe so. They just know if they hit it or not.
Okay, any other questions for Chief Hoppy? How is this, thanks, Chief.
Yep.
How is this in our budget? Did we budget a dollar amount for it?
I don't think we budgeted anything.
And this
for
is
it
the
at
town.
point.
This doesn't go to,
This is your truck, you bought it, you paid for it. The title is still in your name, and I believe the insurances as well. It's your vehicle to do what you want with.
if I recall right from last meeting, we're gonna pay for the whole year of insurance.
Already
whether we-
insured it for the whole year.
Yeah, so,
So we need to at least get that money back.
yeah. Any thoughts?
Well, I think that was $900, right?
Yeah.
So let's set the reserve higher than that.
No, I think we set the reserve at like 15, because
Yeah.
I mean,
I would agree.
I watched the site too, so I mean, I don't see fire trucks going for, especially that year.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, motion to approve the listing of the fire truck, engine 3162, through the Wisconsin surplus auction site with a reserve of $15,000.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for a reserve price of $15,000 on fire engine number 3162 through the Wisconsin surplus auction site. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Now, you'll handle that posting, Dan?
Yeah, I'll work with
With the
Mark
chief-
on
Mark.
getting set up on that site and getting everything posted.
Okay. Item 8C, discussion and possible action on the adoption of Resolution 21-644, a resolution approving the mutual aid box alarm system agreement. Chief Hoppy.
Just another quick update, review of it, unless there's particular questions. This came about because the Wisconsin Mavis president is aware of various consolidations and agencies standing down what they know as a fire department and joining with another. So when we assumed that new relationship with Lake Country, our old Mavis agreement is really no longer valid in the state of, in the eyes of the state. Is there a state statutory language that approves these Mavis agreements and gives some protection to the fire departments when they operate in mutual aid settings? So they are just looking to get a fresh signature on this, as we are now part of Lake Country and kind of responding with them to these events across the state, if you will, these mutual aid box alarms. So that is my understanding of it. I'd have to go back and check. This should have been signed a long time ago when it first became a state statute. I'm not sure if that was done, and that's another reason why they're asking for a copy from the town of Delafield particularly. Then I file it with the Secretary of Mavis, and that is it. This is boilerplate language, and every county in the fire department has signed it in the past. And I know Wales, Genesee is going through the same steps that we are now to get a fresh agreement signed and filed.
And there's no substantive changes from the previous agreement?
No, this is the one I've seen from a long time ago. I just don't recall if and when the town signed it. I couldn't come up with a past approved copy that was signed by a board at some point in time.
And that goes the same for the Waukesha County mutual aid agreement, where I don't think we determined whether it was signed or not by the town.
Right, we determined, I have information that says it never was back, this was 2010, I believe. Yeah, I have information that says it wasn't ever signed. They don't have an official copy of that for the county's
And
mutual aid.
Is that gonna be a requirement then of the town to sign that in order for LCFR to?
Probably, that was more of a protection, I believe, for the town itself, if you had to share plow trucks and some of it is police services or clerk services. That was not just an emergency service fire department thing, that was a sharing of all town resources with other towns and municipalities within the county. Somehow the fire chiefs were tasked with like taking that around and getting it signed. But I think that sprung up a couple of months ago, or maybe right in the height of COVID, so we put it on the back burner. But
Right.
that is kind of a completely different agreement and something I think the town has never signed also.
Will the fire department require us to sign it? Their part of it?
No, I don't think the fire department's gonna require it. We have this, but it's still probably a good thing to look at and review. And I have to check with,
Talk about that in another agenda item.
Yeah, yeah, we can do that.
Any questions for Chief Hoppy? Yeah, this is just procedural catch-up.
it is, for sure, yes.
Okay.
And I don't wanna mix it up more than that. I just don't know if you prepared, they have a sample resolution, but I don't know if there's a different format and way that you want to acknowledge and sign this. They kinda would have a appendix on here, B they call it, where you would do all the signing and circling, and I'm not sure if that's the one. You got
Yeah,
it?
I've changed it all, so we're fine.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, any discussion from the board?
Pretty straightforward.
That is very straightforward.
Motion to approve resolution number 21644 to approve the mutual aid box alarm system agreement.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the adoption of resolution 21-644. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you for your time.
Announcements and planning items. The spring primary, as was mentioned, is Tuesday, February 16th. The Plan Commission will meet Thursday, February 18th at 6:30. And the next town board meeting is Tuesday, February 23rd at 6:30. Any other comments?
Just thank you to the highway department for dealing with the snow and the cold weather, and thank you to the sheriff's department for patrolling Highway KE today and pulling over all the speeders. So,
Yeah? Oh, they did? Okay, good for them. Okay,
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 We are adjourned.